Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. In 2019, the year of Brexit, it's a podcast about Brexit and trying not to do Brexit and trying to make the world a better place and not just sitting around, but also sitting around and talking. That's also good. It's not always easy. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
And this week, we're talking about dealing with I'm bleeping it. I just thought it'd be funny.
Oh, that is funny, but we can't do that. Not for the starting.
I know. How to deal with negative people, I'm going to say.
Yes.
I'm not behaviour. How to deal... Like, look, we're trying to imagine a better world. We're trying to imagine what we can do to make things better. We're trying to think how to improve things. But a lot of people aren't in that mindset, and it can be very tough when you encounter them to have a meaningful exchange, meaningful communication with someone who hasn't thought about even attempting to make anything any different. What do we do when we come up against that?
I once again will recommend the Yuletide anti-fascist extravaganza.
Okay, well.
That's the
good. So don't listen to our podcast. Listen to this other podcast.
Yeah, go and listen to
listen to this one.
Listen to this one first. No, one of the things she talked about is that about being joyful with our difficult messages. I think basically one thing that Michael and I agree on, and agree with Deborah Francis White and her gang, is that we can't stay quiet anymore.
We can't not think about it. Can't be head in the sands.
You can't just expect someone else to deal with it. You can't. You've got Trump, who's trying to get basically a state-run media. It's like out of a novel, out of a Stalinist-inspired novel. It's like, come on, Trump, you're supposed to be the land of the free. So have a word with you. Remember? So there's all this kind of weird shit going on where
so there's negative people, but would we even put Trump in that case? Because he's got an agenda.
Oh no,
I'm talking more about normal.
Yes. So I think one of the thing about speaking up is that you then have to deal with people who are being really negative and being really down on everything, and that takes a lot of energy, and it's takes a lot of joy. The example Deborah used was the videos of the starving children in Yemen. It's very hard to look at those for any of us. It's like, oh no, I'm not watching the video. I'll send you some money. And it's like, if we keep bombarding people with stories of dread, it's not necessarily going to get us anywhere.
No.
And arguing with people isn't either.
We're just going to end up communicating only with people that already know.
Agree.
And it's how do you get through. But anyway, so that's the long and short of it. Negative people, just dealing with negativity. I'm not going to say any person is entirely negative, but obviously it seems that way sometimes. But so that's the subject. You got any other stuff to say this week? How's it going?
Stories?
How's it going since 20 minutes ago?
How have I been for a little while? I made a phone call this morning to company to come and tell us how to fuel our home with solar power. Made that inquiry. They sent me some big long document. The Croats aren't really into sales yet. So I was like, hi, I'm phoning you about electrifying my house with solar.
Yeah.
Can I send you an email? I'd really rather you didn't. I'll send you an email with all the information in it. Great. Thank you. You're not even going to give me headlines? No. I'll send you a document. It explains everything. It's like the world's longest email full of electricity stats.
Right. Amazing.
I was like,
there's some colours on this.
And before we come and give you a quote, you've got to get all these documents, because everything in this country runs on documents. What I want on the subject of getting people to help you, as discussed last week, is I'd like to say to somebody, Then for the girl, hi, yeah, that's brilliant. Do you know what? First, we can come over and have a little chat with you at your house and have a look at your house.
Yeah.
And then for a first quote, it costs 200 quid or whatever, because we've got to do some surveys. Brilliant. No, she sent me a nice long email. Oh, cheers. So that's happened to me this morning.
Yeah, about that thing about how putting energy back on the grid is getting kind of revoked. So if you solar power your house in the UK, at the moment, you can kind of get paid by the energy companies if you're putting energy back on, and they're changing that. I don't know what is behind that. That seems
Just
pretty offensive.
T behaviour.
It's a lot of bleeping this week.
It's just no surprises there from our glorious government.
You're still doing stuff. You're still doing awful stuff. Cool.
You're still shit. Oh, there's a surprise.
So one good incentive. Just let's remove incentives for being more ecologically motivated. Let's do that. Cool.
Well, how about you, Michael?
I've got some good news.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
This week, I have broken 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel.
Wow, does that mean you get a proper URL?
That means I can monetize if I want. Now I can decide not to monetize my videos again. So since they introduced the pay thing on Google, I think they kind of overhauled their partnership stuff, and so you've got to have had 4,000 hours of viewing and over 1,000 subscribers to be eligible, which was a bit annoying because I used to be able to, but it's taken me a few months. What tipped me over was a video by a guy called Martin Keary,
right?
Who's a name you may have heard because I discovered one of his videos on YouTube, and as he was talking, well, first I noticed he was using the Ubuntu font. Then just the way he was talking about a couple of things, his examples had some slightly spurious Ubuntu examples, I thought. And then he'd sort of also talked about moving to London as a designer. And I was like, I think he worked at Canonical, didn't he? So I tracked him down on LinkedIn and sort of we exchanged some messages. And he's, he'd had a listen to the podcast, said he sort of sounded like he shared some of our values. And he sort of featured me in one of his. He's got like 50,000 subs on his channel. So he sort of mentioned me, called me out in one of his videos. So that just gave me the last 100 odd that I needed. And now I'm over 1,000 at last. So one of my little questions that, I've mentioned maybe my new tab in Chrome that I made, which was one of my goals. One of them has been, is YouTube paying you anything yet? And finally I can say, yes.
Excellent. Very good. And what's his videos about?
His videos about musical, pretty music stuff. He's very good. He's got his Tantacruel. I'll link to it, obviously. It's some pretty, the video that he linked to me in was called, What is Aleatoric Music? So,
talk about a niche.
Yeah, the thing that drew me to him was he'd done sort of a tear down of the user interface of a program called Propellerhead, reason which I've got issues with the UX of a lot of music software for different reasons, and I was just quite happy to see someone do a proper analysis of a piece of music software that I'm very familiar with, and I'm sort of glad I've sort of touched on it in blog posts and little videos of my own in the past, but seeing someone doing a really good job of it, writing a good thing, having jokes in there, he just does good videos. I actually ended up putting on the telly in the front room, and so my dad and stepmom and sister were in there. All felt a bit out of our depth when he started sort of talking about the theory stuff, but he sort of illustrated it well. But it's more like that thing of when someone is interested in something and has gone deep and it brings you into it. It almost, if you weren't interested in it in the first place, it gets you interested in it.
Yeah.
So he's got a really good channel like that, and I was grateful for the shout out. I'm sure a negative person would say, "Ooh, big deal."
A negative person will say, only 1,000 subscribers. What does that make you every week? 10p.
Well done. Sometimes the worst negative voice is the one in your own brain, isn't it?
It is.
The most critical. It's criticism, really. This is criticism, cynicism.
Well, you can't. It's impossible not to use the word criticism, and criticism is useful because criticism is one of the tools by which you learn where you're wrong or what you're wrong about or what's wrong with your idea or how it could be better. So for example, my first foray into, come on, Facebooker, don't be so dismissive.
Yeah.
Where somebody said, can I have a name for a zero waste company? And he went, a rip-off, or whatever it was. And it's that sort of like, whatever topic you choose, the story that they give you is one of no progress, or one of no hope, or one of how you're going to fail. Here on the Balkans, there is a cultural thing. That is very much the way people are. Like, we've bought a house in a beautiful place, very close to sea, I'm delighted, over the moon with what I've serendipitously found. And there's a guy who lives at the bottom of our road, next door to some friends of ours, and he went, oh, so you've got a great view of the supermarket, have you? It's like, A, no. We're not that far up the hill. B, so what? And C, the correct response is, oh, that's great, congratulations. Wonderful to have some new people move into the village. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why do you have to shit on my house before you've even said hello to me?
Well, the person that I am that person that we're talking about.
You are, yeah. No, you're not.
I have been.
You can be.
I was, at least until my 30s, criticism, finding the negative was a reflex.
Yeah.
Right. It was my default position. I do it in a funny way, but I wasn't going to say anything good about anything.
No.
I was going to say, so I might make you laugh with my criticism of something, but people get sick of it. People have had enough of it. I have to hold my hands up and say, that has been me. I don't think it's me anymore. I put a lot of effort into that not being me anymore.
My cousin does do this. Like, he comes into this village, he stays in my house, and then he goes, oh, did you hear this story about this person that did this? I'm like, that is not my experience of that person. Somebody in the village that you don't know has told you a negative story about somebody, so that's the one you're going to tell me instead of the 3 positive stories I'm going to tell you about that same person. What is it about that? And it does irritate me. It's not I discussed this with his daughter, and she's like, yeah, it's a bit like that. And it's like this sort of like, so much easier to believe the negative. I think it's because there's an absence of hope. If I believe that things are bad, then I won't be disappointed. There is a touch of that sort of like, oh yeah, well, I've seen how this film ends, blah, blah, blah. But I think that I think on the humour side, all my teenage years into my 20s was all about, the way I got my laughs was by finding fault. It's much easier. But why is that?
It's because, I think, like evolutionarily speaking, we take this back to evolutionary psychology. Like, it's obviously, and we've mentioned it, it's more important to notice the dangers.
Yeah, true.
Stuff that's working doesn't get much consciousness. So if you are, if you're smart, then you're more effective at finding fault with just about anything. I think that's the reason. But criticism is poisonous. Like, here's the reasons that I do just call someone a negative person rather than a realistic person. Being critical is a choice at a certain point. You can really start bending over backwards to find the problems, or looking further and further away from your direct experience for evidence of why you feel bad. I had a kind of row in a pub with someone quite recently who was definitely just a kind of relentlessly negative person. You can just see that he's unhappy in his life. But the way that he's justifying it is, we're at war. There are problems in the world. There are terrible things happening all the time. And I'm sort of arguing the kind of, yes, but you're not getting drafted right now. Like, we are, I know there's still things happening, but the human race in terms of violence is doing better than it ever has. And he was like, he just starts really kind of laying into how stupid and boring I am. I'm like, I know that I would rather have a conversation with him about why he's sad than the reasons that he feels like are big enough that would be that he's sort of having to look further away. If you are just looking for negative, you can find it if you keep looking.
Yeah.
But it's a poison at a certain point. But there's 2 things there. One is you feel a certain way, so you look for evidence for it. Whereas the other one is the survival thing of being in the habit of, I think it all comes from you feel bad. You look for reasons that you feel bad, and then that tends to make you continue to feel bad.
The evolutionarily speaking thing, I'd not thought of at all. Don't know why. And actually, from a point of view of risk analysis and survival, you do need to be able to find quite quickly what's wrong with something, why this isn't going to work, whatever. So that's cool. And I can see that as a valuable skill. I think the problem is that the opposite side, what you said was like about, the fact that you're alive today means that you and your ancestors have actually been quite good at that. So you've got to where you are, you're quite smart, you're going to continue to survive, so you're going to be quite good at looking at all the problems. Which, of course, is why I'm trying to decide whether I want to be in the country on the 29th of March or outside the country on the 20th. Do I want to be outside looking in or inside looking out? Anyway, I think what's happened is now that the cleverness aspect has been celebrated to a point of ridiculousness. You can be a restaurant critic and you can destroy a business. You can celebrate how cleverly you destroy somebody's idea. And it's no longer a valuable addition to help them find fault and improve. It is a power. A look at me, I can slay your idea with my pen. I can kill your business. I can destroy your life's work. I can do whatever, just by shitting all over it. One could argue in the context of, music and film criticism. I mean, bearing in mind, I actively avoid watching anything that gets less than a 7.2 on IMDb. So I'm not. I want the views.
Side note: we watched something. Side note: we watched something that had like 5.8 or 6 or something, but it sounded like an interesting premise, and we watched it. It was good. It's not always right.
No, we've softened our criteria mostly because we're in more, because we've got a child, watch more telly. Anyway, but so I totally understand the fact that if somebody warns you that a book is rubbish or a film is rubbish or a restaurant is rubbish, it saves you the bother of going there. And that's okay, fine, that it provides a service. But what about that restaurant? Why has it become more acceptable? And obviously, this is my example because of Restaurants Brighton. But, why has it become more acceptable to run to TripAdvisor and slag off a restaurant than to simply say, excuse me, my meal's cold? Could you please cook it again? Or, excuse me, I've been waiting for half an hour, where's my food? Whatever it is, rather than go on to TripAdvisor. I mean,
well, it's not that it's more acceptable, it's that it's easier than having to actually confront another person. Yeah.
But then we're back to that same whole why do trolls exist? so there's there's that easier bit. Okay, I'm trying to break this down into something a bit more. I sort of want to find a scenario where that negative criticism is useful, but it has to be delivered in a useful way.
Well, here's a thing I've written down. So we all talk about constructive criticism, and that's not necessarily something I believe in. Like, sometimes it's more important to encourage something without pointing out its weaknesses, because it's more important to keep the creator motivated and moving forwards and developing than it is to take the wind out of their sails by saying something that will confirm their underlying belief that they're terrible at this, which is, like every creative person feels like they're terrible at what they're doing. So if you just give someone evidence for that, and they've got thin skins, and I'm definitely one of those people with thin skins, like criticism is 99% of the time not going to help me. It's just going to shut me down. So I think we should talk about responsible criticism, which is like actually thinking about how it is going to affect things. So before you go and kind of write that review, that what's the effect of that is probably to undermine this business. You're going to maybe hurt this business. Is that what you want? Or do you just want your food to be better? Could you change this more effectively just by talking to the person? Same with like if it's someone's music making, like maybe if they send you 2 or 3 things and they all suffer from a particular pattern of something that doesn't look like they're improving on, then you kind of go, well, maybe you should try and come this way. And with children, I just think it's really important always to be very, mindful of the effects of your criticism?
I think the word consequences is interesting. Again, I've been reading this book called something like Gentle Discipline or something. My daughter's nearly 4 and she's very much into this. No, I don't want to do that. But why don't you want to do that? Because I don't want to. And it's like, there's lots of misbehaving that isn't, I don't think it's always misbehaving. It's just testing and working things out, blah, blah, blah. And I want her to try stuff without hurting herself. There are massive consequences to just going, no. Point 1, you said, was about the sort of creative person or the creative brain. There is a difference between, watch it, that bridge you've built is broken, you're going to fall into the river.
Yeah.
Stop, you're going to die. Yeah. Because you want them to go into flight or fight. And you want them to go narrow thinking, survive, get away. Versus, the way you're building this tower... Have you thought about the fact that if you keep building it that, I don't know, there's like, what do you think is going to happen if we keep adding things onto this tower? Oh, it fell over. Maybe we need to do it differently because we still, we don't want to put them off. We don't want to scare them. We don't want to we don't want that little voice coming to you in the supermarket going, Mummy, don't tell them I was naughty. We don't want that thinking. We want you to keep playing, but there's a few things you might want to think about that will make your play more productive or more successful, or you might achieve more things. And it's that sort of, throwing a bag of sugar around in the supermarket is neither productive nor useful. And it's now you see what happens when you do that. Let's not do that again. But climbing up things in the garden, let's have a look at tugging on a rope first before you start climbing to find out if it's safe. You know what I mean? It's like, I've obviously been spending a lot of time with my child, and she's quite interesting at the moment because there's lots of things she can do, and she's getting the confidence with which she draws these really funny faces. It's amazing. I don't draw with that confidence. I don't understand what kills that confidence in you, where she'll literally, draw a massive head, eyes, eyelashes, always 3 massively long eyelashes, and she does it with such flourish, and then she signs her name. They are, you can imagine what they look like, but she just, there's no hesitation. Yeah. There's no, that's wrong.
Yes. And certain areas where that's absolutely the right attitude. It's not about being wrong. It's not about criticising. It's not about pointing out the problems with something. It's about encouraging a sort of expansive, creative behaviour. My dad, not to keep bringing it was just Christmas. We were in a room and my 2-year-old niece was trying to get people to do things, and a couple of people were like, oh, she's being very bossy. And I was like, okay, I mean, you're not. So I kind of come in with, okay, well, I've heard you're not meant to say bossy to little girls, because I was like, what? And well, apparently you wouldn't say it to a little boy. But I was like, well, yeah, I would say it to a little boy that was being bossy. And I'm like, okay, I obviously said that the wrong way, in the way that... And then my dad, at every subsequent opportunity to describe my niece, seems to use the word bossy. Bossy, yeah. And then like a different synonym for it to try and show that he's like, it's like, obviously I did that wrong. But that's maybe a defense about admitting when you're wrong, but maybe I'm the negative person saying that, criticizing there, like, but I'm just like, okay, well, I can't really let this lie. I've got to kind of fight the fight, be this social justice warrior in this situation. Okay, here I come. It wasn't the only time this weekend. A couple of people in the family were starting to sort of tell these stories about how awful poor people's houses, how awful poor people are, kind of thing. Like, one's a plumber, one's a builder, describing these experiences. Like, fine. But I just, it kind of got to the point where I just had to say, look, I know this is a killjoy thing. I'm not trying to be like a buzzkill on this, but you've got to look at it. You can't blame the person for the state they're in. Like, you can't blame someone that has no other options for giving up. That you can't blame people for their own poverty. Well, yeah, I mean, people can still be bad people. Yes, of course. But, to come in, it's almost like, am I the negative person in that situation for just making people, trying to get people to kind of like stop and get out of those things, even though they've seen more of that than I've seen. So who am I, but I for my ability to see a way of positively improving the world, I kind of do need to like stop people in their tracks of how they're thinking about things if I can. And
Yeah, but I think this is an interesting vein that we need to tap. So if we don't think about it in terms of dealing with other people who are negative and coming up with negative ideas all the time, let's think about what are the constructive ways of giving positive feedback that are Britishly, culturally acceptable. If you go, hey, like in a like, what is the English version? Or, oh my God, your project is awesome. Yeah, when it clearly isn't. It's just good, and that's great, and I'd like to see more.
I love how many layers of bread do you have to put around your shit sandwich for it to, like, how many bits of salad and things do you... I'm like, I don't ever put even one thing in. I don't even embellish it. I just kind of go straight to the nub all the time, and obviously that doesn't work. Or it just makes it a bit more of a thinker for the other person, and maybe eventually, they'll realise it for themselves. And maybe that's all I can do, is just throw that seed in and just kind of stand back and go, well, that's that next 20 minutes ruined.
Choosing what to say that's good about a thing is actually quite hard. In order to sound clever about a positive bit of feedback, you need to know more about the subject. Mm. So let's say I've listened to a piece of, pick on music. Okay. I can go like, let's take music of which I'm not terribly knowledgeable. I like listening to it, and I'll kind of go, you should listen to this. I really like it. Mm. Or you should listen to this. My friend made it. But that's about my limits. I can't go, you should listen to this. It's got this really ace guitar bit. Or the production values of this are amazing, or whatever you're supposed to say.
This is a wonderful example of the aleatoric principle.
Exactly.
Mode.
It's very easy. We're all trained and we all know how to pick holes in things, because it's usually quite fundamental. I don't like this, or it's a bit rubbish the way they've done such and such. But actually to say something, and I do think I think a lot of this being positive about something boils down to feeling clever, or feeling, certainly for me, I don't want to sound too naive, and I don't want to sound too kind of like, hey, this is amazing, because that's not that is.
It's not how you roll.
It's not how I roll, and people are going to say, "Oh, look at her." One of my concerns about our podcast is that listening to it is, I think, it shows our sort of positive. We're not sitting here slagging off the world, and it's like, are we just coming across as sort of like naive idiots? It's like, actually, people, it takes a lot of effort to come across, try to be positive about all these things. So it's like, it's just so much harder to go, hey, you should go to this restaurant. The food's not amazing, but it's a brilliant night out. Would you ever say that? I don't know. Is that what you say?
This episode is about dealing with negative people more than how not to be a negative person. So,
shit.
What do we do? What do we do when we come up against someone? What is that? Like a negative person, it's like, if I'm totally honest, how to deal with negative people, I don't know that I've got much better than just ignore them, get them out of your life.
Yeah. That's my problem. Okay, there's negative people who are in your life and who are personal to you, who just, are toxic, not adding any value. I think that's not entirely the topics of this podcast. You know, that's more
That's
about
not what I'm thinking about either. I'm thinking about work as well. Like when
Yeah,
someone's just a problem, it's just like, okay, write off, just work around, you know. There's got to be a better way.
In our world of, you know, trying to do good things, little small good things all the time, or more and more, or every day, or whatever it is, like we simply can't let those voices be louder than ours.
Right.
I think that's the problem. It's like, and that, you know, in a work environment, it's okay to say, like, let's say you've got that person who's like, I mean, I've had to deal with people like this as a manager, as discussed in episode before last. I've even like gone into a room with somebody and just gone, look, it possibly wasn't in the textbooks. It's like, I need you to sort your shit out, because you walk in here every day looking like, you know, like you're late, you show no respect to your colleagues, you never have anything positive to say. I don't know where it comes from, but I think you're clever enough to be better than this. It's exhausting working with you. Nobody wants to work with you. You know, deal with it, or go and work somewhere else, or do something else. But I don't think I even said go and work somewhere else. I was like, you're good at what you do. You are clever, creative. Be more creative in how you work with the rest of us, and show us some respect, because as it stands, you're just not. And then he wanted to respond. I was like, no, I'm talking, you're listening, and then you can go and think about what I've said, but I'm not having a discussion. This is just what I'm going to say. And I think perhaps that wasn't in the textbook, and if he was a different person, he probably could have gone and complained about me or something. But it's like,
did it work?
It worked. I judged, and our working relationship improved massively after that, because I wasn't tolerating his. I couldn't. I did read it based on his personality and his cultural background, that I could do that, and I wasn't going to have some, you know, some snowflaking at me. It's like look, but and it was only 5 or 10 minutes, but it made a big difference. And I think you have to be able to say, look, it's not personal. It's not, I don't dislike you. I don't know. Or you don't even need to say those sorts of things. It's like, okay, great, I've heard you. What shall we do about it? What would you do about it? What would you like me to do about it? Because these are our choices. We ignore. Yes, observe, noted. You think that's rubbish. Great, noted. We can ignore you. We can note it. We could do something about it. What do you want to do about it? Congratulations for identifying a flaw. You can't. I think you do have to confront it, and that doesn't have to be aggressive. Doesn't have to be, you know, confrontation is another word that English people particularly, I think, can't deal with. Having a robust disagreement with somebody is something that really the British are worst at. Right. You know, it's like there's nothing wrong. Like, in the same way, I'm never going to realise I'm wrong unless we have an open, honest conversation about stuff. And I think that's why when I've been doing this interneting, it's just like, yeah, great, now what? Brilliant, well done you for pointing out something more that's rubbish. It's like there was a recent one on Twitter where somebody went, oh, hey, Norway are banning traffic from the centre of Oslo and they're going to turn all the roads into bike lanes and plant flowers in the parking spots. What a lovely idea. And then this other guy comes in going, yeah, but their CO2 emissions have gone up X amount by... I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Sounds like they're not ignoring it, though. Oh, yeah, but I'm not sure pollution in Oslo is their main source of CO2 emissions. And then somebody else came in and went, actually, you know, Oslo, blah, blah. And he said, source, I live in Oslo. And then then this same guy goes, yeah, and then they make all their money out of... You know, and there was this Twitter conversation where I learned a lot about Norway. But the fact that, for example, they have 100% sales tax on normal vehicles, but no sales tax or very reduced sales tax on electric vehicles. They're doing more, but there is this problematic fact that they live from oil exports. So. But, you know, it's like, I think not ignoring a problem should be celebrated. You know, brilliant, Norway, you're doing something great. Now... let's have a little word about your oil exports.
Well, so there's criticism of, here's a situation, and there's bringing a solution, but then there's criticism of solutions because they are not perfect, is the sort of thing that I think that's the thing we're talking about here, isn't it?
Yeah.
People who will criticize imperfection, even if it's movement in a positive direction, they'll still criticize it for not being perfect, and that is then like all or nothing depressive thinking. That how did that last one go in the end?
He was
unrepentant.
It wasn't that he was unrepentant, but it just kept going. So instead of it being a slam, like Norway, whatever, it just ended up, we just kept the conversation going and added in more facts, more, like, okay, valid, but actually it does quite a lot. And it shows an example. I think everybody dismisses far too easily the idea of positive examples. The Fair phone is not a perfect phone, but it does so much positive. There's that toilet paper supplier that who gives a crap, if you come across them. And they sort of ship everything, it's wrapped in paper and it's paper, and it's sort of, and then there's this whole, but where does it come from? I think it's shipped from China. It's like, I get it, but it's an example. It shows that consumers are interested and can be interested in different products. So, it's not perfect, but what is?
A really easy way to stay alone is to be critical of other people with whom you might have a relationship. So dating, if you are habitually critical, then there's no one you're ever going to meet that there isn't something wrong with. But do you know what then happens? You're just not going to have anyone. So you kind of have to accept that no one's perfect. And instead of looking for the problems with anyone that you meet, celebrate the things that you do have in common. I think that's good advice for everything, isn't it? I
think that's good advice. I mean, I think that, obviously Nick is perfect.
Okay. As is Sharon.
It's that kind of thing where there is a bit of that, when people go, he always does this. I was like, yeah, but remember, he does all these other things that are really cool. So start, this is not specific. I'm just, like sitting in those girlfriends having a coffee in the movies or wine. It's with your friends as well, on the subject that you may be the person that can often find fault in things. That's something that I actually enjoy about you now. It's like there may be a couple of times where you might take the wind out of my sails occasionally, but most of the time I'm coming to you because I know you will find fault. And it's useful. It's because I know also, and that is the difference with people you're in a relationship with versus strangers, that you can kind of go, you trust them, that they're not doing it to harm you.
Yeah.
They're doing it to improve. It's like, I will ask Nick if an outfit looks okay, because I trust him to go, I might go, what do you mean? What's wrong with it? What you're saying? Because he usually goes, can't you do something with your hair? No.
Here's the thing with like a negative person. If you are going to get through to someone that really is unrepentantly, or just hasn't quite noticed that they're doing this, there's going to be emotional repercussions, right? Like you can't, it is an emotionally driven thing in the first place. So I am very grateful to a sort of gut person I was working with for a bit, who, when I was under stress, we kind of got this thing delivered. But then as we kind of got through the hump, he sort of sent me a message saying, can you apologise to the PM for snapping at her? And oh my goodness, was my reaction defensive. Like, I had to like pack up, storm out, go home, sob. If this is the level at which I have been affecting people, if I've been affecting people with things like that, then I have got such a volume of terrible things to atone for that I can't even deal with it. It just has to be processed. There's a lot to process. So I think what you did was right. Sit someone down in a room. Don't let them get into defensive mode, but also don't let them take it away and deal with the fallout of having to kind of realise that on their own time. Hopefully next time they come back, they will be able to have adjusted their behaviour a bit and kind of go through with it.
Them emotions.
Emotions are tough. How's our done good then? Looking at the scoreboard, I see you've got 6 and I've got 5. So, I mean, for me, I've got my donation. I did put a few hours into my project of let's make the world see things. And I kind of gave myself 2 points for Christmas stuff. Even though it's like socially mandated, think about other people. I don't know. What do you think?
What do you mean by Christmas stuff?
Like just having to kind of think about...
Deal with it.
Having this... Getting presents and thinking and worrying and stressing about what I'm going to do that's going to... is it going to even be possible to do? And even though I did a kind of... I didn't do a good job this year at all, partly because I've not really had enough spare attention to know what my family is really up to anymore. Like, and that goes both ways as well, but... they could just listen to the podcast, bastards. I had like 70. I noticed I had suddenly like 17 names on a list of people that I was immediately going to have to think about, just with all the partners and the children, and I had just left it too late. So I gave myself 2 points for dealing with that, but I'm inclined to give myself 1 more because I really did find the kind of being at home, and because I could have gone to Milan and just hung out with Sharon's family, and that would have been much more relaxing. So I did go home for my family's benefit, ultimately more than my own, and it wasn't terrible, but I found it hard. So, and it wasn't for me. So I don't know what you think about points for that.
So I think having a point for doing something that was hard but was going to keep like a group of people happy. I think you should call that out separately, though, not under Christmas stuff. Christmas stuff's a bit vague. I think you can have a point combined with your Christmas stuff. So in addition to your to for Christmas stuff, but call it. I think it's just being kind. It's like it's not being it's the opposite of being selfish, isn't it? The selfish thing would have been to run away.
It's like it really was like not for my benefit. I mean, a little bit. Obviously, I met my nephew. There was some moments that were wonderful, but a lot of it was just very hard.
Well, no, okay, I'll give you... If you have that point, then we're evens, which I think is a nice way to end the year.
Okay.
Or start the year, whatever episode this is.
This is like a bit in, but yeah, we're recording this on the 28th, right? I
think it'd be nice to end on a even Stevens, because I've got some more ideas for what we could do for this. So I'd like another participant or two.
Yeah. I see all of yours are about picking up rubbish.
Yeah, I just picked up. It's the easiest thing I can do at the moment. I mean, I could give myself a point for me and Nick not buying each other Christmas presents because we don't enter into that. But we've never done that, so it's not a new thing. So I'm perfectly happy with this. But it's things like I went for a run in a storm, so I got very wet, and there were loads of massive lumps of polystyrene on the beach. So I collected them up and took them to the bin, and then I did as my cool down. I've just stopped. What's happened to me in the last few weeks since we've been doing this is that instead of walking past rubbish going, rubbish, I just pick it up.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
If you like the podcast, go to grandpodcast.com and you can subscribe there. There's a big orange button that if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe, and then it'll download and tell you when it's subscribed. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
You can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com, or music is made by my brain and fingers and vocal accessories.
I think I should say that.
Okay.
Michael makes all the brilliant music on this podcast.
Okay, well, that's nicer, because then I get to feel like that's a contribution.
Yeah, so you don't have to be like feeling self-conscious about saying, listen to my brilliant music. The musical interludes on this podcast are all excellent, I think you'll agree, and well chosen and well written by Michael Forest. Happy New Year, Michael.
All right. Well, Happy New Year again for, last week. And thanks for listening, everyone. Oh, you can also review and shit. But,
do reviews. But
needy.
We'll let you off this week.
All right. Okay, let's
surprise us.
Now we'll let Ivanka return to her family as she has been away from them for extra time. Bye.